Hello everyone, welcome back to Teenage Teach Django tags if statements. So we're taking a look at the tags that involve the if statements, okay? This will be a very simple lesson. The only thing is it's long, okay? If statement, what does it do? To refresh our memory, evaluates a variable, right? Evaluates a variable, true or false, whether or not it has a value or not, and executes a block of code if the value is true, right? If condition is true, do this. If condition is not true, do that, Very common if-else statement. Now, we're not dealing with the else first. We'll go through it slowly, one by one. Let's go with the if. If x, now, 2 equals, if you remember from other languages, with Python and HTML. Well, not HTML, Python, strictly. This is an equal sign, okay? And we don't use a single one because that's the assignment operator. If x is equal or exactly 1, print x is 1. And then end if, we end the Django code. Because we're doing this in an HTML file, therefore we have to specify where Django begins and where it ends. Now, let's move on to elif. If the previous condition is not true, try this. So we have if, right? But elif, x equals to 2, x is 2. So this is just else if, an alternative to if, okay? Because you can only write if once. Now, to else. Else catches anything that isn't caught by if and elif. Basically anything that goes before it. Now, if x is not 1, x is not 2, I don't know, okay? Else, I don't know. Now to operators. The equal operator, check if a variable is equal to a value. But there are also many more. What I mean by that is many more ways to evaluate x being true to carry out, your code. You can get rid of the operator if you just want to check whether or not a variable is empty. And this is the same concept in JavaScript and Python, where if you want to evaluate something into true, as long as it has a value, it will. If it doesn't, it'll evaluate to false, okay? And so if we just want a simple true-false, and x is defined with a value, you don't need to bother with the equal operator, okay? It will evaluate into true. Now, moving on. The different operators that'll come into useful to you in the future. This is not equal to, right? Less than is less than or equal to, is greater than or equal to. I'm sure you already know how to handle these. And now, and is an operator that checks if more than one condition is true. If x equals to 1 and y equals to 2, sorry. But the catch is x must equals to 1 and y must equals to 2, okay? If only x is equal to 1 or only y is equals to 2, this is not going to work. It needs both conditions to be true to evaluate into true. Now, or check if one of the condition is true. X equals to 1 or y equals to 2. Now, or only needs one condition to be true to evaluate as true, okay? Now, if x equals to 1, so you already got 1, you got that there, and y is not 2, it's still true, it will be true, which cannot be said, which cannot be said for n, okay? Now, and or, we can combine the two and add in z, x equals to 1 and y equals to 2, or z equals to 3. So what this means is you have 2 options to evaluate into true. Either both x and y evaluates into true, or only z needs to be true, okay? in, very simple, check if a certain item is included in an object. If X in numbers, let's say, and numbers is an array, is a variable. Not in, the opposite of in, check if an item is not within an object. If it's not, it will evaluate into true. If it is, this will evaluate into false. And the opposite is for in, okay? Now, moving on to is. Check if two objects are the same. So we're going to test this out in views.py file where we have the context of, let's say, apple, banana, cherry for both X and Y, okay? So they are arrays that have the same values. Now, if X is Y, yes. Else, no. Very simple. If X is the same as Y, evaluates into yes. Otherwise, print no. Now, we have the opposite of that, like we do with in and not in, is not. Check if two objects are not the same. And if X really is not Y, then yes. However, if X is the same as Y, no. Okay? So we already have our variable first name equals to Meredith. Now, if you want to add a new variable, we're going to have to go back to the views.py file, which is a bit annoying. So I'm going to go ahead and use this variable first name to continue with our if tag. Okay, so let's start with a simple if first name, right? So that's what we're working with, equals to Meredith, some spacing, nice, well, not nice to meet you, we already wrote it. So this is Meredith, okay? And then we end if, and if, all right? Now, obviously, this is going to give us straight up, this is Meredith. So let's add an elif, all right? Let's go down here and have elif, first name, equals to Johnny, right? And we can test all of these out by changing the values of first name here and there. So we're going to go back and forth between our website and this, template.html. So now you don't have to worry about all of this, not appearing much. This is Johnny, right? Not Meredith, okay? Now, let's add another one. We already have elif. We're going to add, what's next in the line? Else. We're going to add else. So if it's not Meredith, it's not Johnny, it's going to go straight to else. There is no one, okay? So that is else for us. And after we're done with this, we're going to go to the operators, all right? Just experimenting with some operators. And we're going to change the value of the first name. Maybe we need to dive into views.py, but not for now. First off, I'm going to run the server, pymanage.py run server. I think you have this memorized by now. And once it's done, we're going to go straight to this address with testing in the back. So we have, hello Meredith, nice to meet you. This is the first line of code, and this is Meredith. Okay, it is Meredith. But what if we change it to Johnny? Okay, let's see if this works. Hello Johnny, nice to meet you. This is Meredith. Now, why does this happen when first name equals to Johnny? Let's go to views.py. So let's scroll down here, first name, Meredith. Let's change this to Johnny. Okay, we have Johnny. Let's run this again. This is Johnny, not Meredith. However, this variable over here is a little bit more independent. So if you make it something like Jessica, right? Hello Jessica, but this is the same. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to change the variable in views.py file, and we're going to leave this one alone. Okay, let's try Jessica, right? Let's try a name that's not included in the if and else statement. Jessica. There is no one. Simple like that. Now let's move on to the operators, move on to is not, in, and not in, and I think we already work with, the equal, the symbol right here, whether or not two values are the same or equal to each other. And I'm pretty sure you're already familiar, with the greater than but and equal to, less than but equal to. We're going to go with the operators that's less common instead of the ones that you encounter in everyday life. Now let's go back to views.py file, and I'll keep this, okay? But I'll change this little part over here. Let's scroll down. So I'll keep this, but I'll change this little part over here in views.py file. Now, we're going to make it, I'm going to delete this part, right? Because we're still using template.html. There's no reason to change it, as well as return HTTP response. I'm just going to change the context equals to. Okay, and we're going to use X and Y this time. X equals to, let's see, Meredith, Johnny, and Jessica. Okay, and down here I'll have Y equals to, same thing. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this. Okay, copy, paste. Don't forget the comma at the back here. Ctrl S to save. And then I'm running back to template.html. I'm gonna delete this part. We'll leave this alone, okay? This has nothing to do with our current lesson, and it won't bother us, so we'll leave it alone. And then let's go ahead with if X is Y. Yes. Okay, yes. Oh, not yes, no, just yes. And then else, no. Okay. And last but not least, an if. Then let's move along to is not. I'm going to create a separate, separate block of code. So if X is not Y, this should be the opposite of the one that we just had. Yes. And then else, no. And if. Okay, and if. Ctrl S to save. And we have two more to go, actually, which is in and not in. We've already dealt with is and is not. So we're going to move on to in and not in to check if a certain item is present in an object. Okay? If, what do we have? Jessica, right? Jessica. In X. Jessica is in X. Else, Jessica is not in X. And then simply an if. Now we're going to move on to not in. Okay? If we're going to use Johnny. Okay? We're going to use Johnny. Johnny not in Y, let's say, and this is going to give us false, right? Because Johnny is within Y. If Johnny not in Y, Johnny is not in Y. Not in Y, not you. Else, Johnny is in Y. and if. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try another one with not in, but this time we're using a different name that we haven't used before. If, let me think, Marnie, not in X. Marnie is not in X. Else, Marnie is in X. And if, and, so let's see how this works. Okay, so as you can see here, it is all on the same line, which is bothersome because it's quite difficult to differentiate which one is which. So I'm going to go ahead and add a line break to each of them. We are here as well. Okay, here as well. Here. Let me move this up a bit. Okay, so over here. I think that covers it now. Like everything has a line break. Okay, let's run it again. All right, so let's go through each of our code. First off, if X is Y. If it is, yes. Else, no. And X is not Y. Now, why is that? When you both have Meredith, Johnny, and Jessica, in both X and Y. Well, the is different from the equal to operator because the operator checks whether or not they have the same value. And if you use that operator, this will return true. However, is checks for identity, and X is obviously a different variable compared to Y. Okay, so let me just go back real quick. All right. Now, if I change this, let's say I make it X, and I run it again, that is a yes, okay? Now, let's go back and change it back. Now, if X is not Y, it is indeed not Y, it is different from Y, therefore it is a yes over here. Next up, if Jessica in X, Jessica is in X. We can obviously see that in the views.py file. We have Jessica over here. Next up, if Johnny is not in Y, which returns false because Johnny is right here, therefore it returns else. Johnny is in Y. If Marnie not in X, which obviously she's not, so this returns true. Marnie is not in X. Okay, Marnie is not in X. As simple as that. Okay, maybe you prefer the Python if else, or whether or not you prefer the Django syntax instead. Do let me know in the comments. And for the last one, let's try with this operator instead of is. And this should give us yes, right? It's yes all the way. Now that's it for today's lesson. Thank you for tuning in and watching until the end. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Learn today, better tomorrow. Next topic is the tags for loops. So do tune into that and have a wonderful day.